time. We are ready to rock this school year. Some of you have already started. Some of you are just about to start, and we're going to give you another dose of some social media inspiration for your school. We've got Dr. Jill Johnson from Class Intercom. She is a 30-year plus educator, and she's got a lot of experience. She actually did her dissertation on using students as social media storytellers. So she's like kind of an expert, right? Like that's what she got her doctorate in, right? And she's going to share a lot of tips on getting students involved. Of course, Class Intercom is a company that has an awesome platform that easily allows you to get students involved and still have an approval process. She's going to talk through all of that, but whether you have their tool or not, she's got a lot of inspirational ideas, stories that they've been able to tell, ways to get students involved, and I'm really, really excited for you to learn from her. Now, my Instagram, if Instagram's on your like to-do spot for this year, like to take Instagram to the next level, I'd really love to invite you into my Instagram boot camp. That's right, we've got a boot camp made just for Instagram. You're going to head over to my website under services and go to the Instagram boot camp for schools. My session, you guys, it's almost filled up. It starts the week of September 19th. It's a 4-week course. We're going to talk all about Instagram Reels, Instagram stories and highlights. If you are sick of posting the same thing from Facebook to Instagram and you're just not driving the engagement, you need to be part of this boot camp. Head over to my website, get signed up now, and now let's get to this week's quick K12 PR tip. All right, this week's K12 PR tip is all about trying Instagram Reels. Now, Instagram just announced that actually any video that you upload on the Instagram platform, if it's less than 15 minutes, is going to be a reel, which doesn't all make sense because Reels is really about short form video content. But if you are not in the Instagram Reels game, I would invite you in. The views and the ability to add followers to your account is real. And, real is in quotation marks, right? Get your students involved. Jill's going to talk a lot about student contributors today. And so if you are not in the Instagram Reel game, why don't you invite some of your students in to help you figure it out? Think about your maybe football team. Think about your student council. Think about some of the other organizations in your schools that you could work with to create 1 or 2 or 3 reels that could get you going. And then you're going to see the reach and you're going to say, okay, this is worth it. And if you want to dive deeper into learning Instagram Reels and more opportunities to grow your Instagram channel, then like I said in the intro, check out my Instagram bootcamp. It really is going to help you get to the next level in regards to engagement and consistent posting and just a great presence, knowing and feeling confident in what you're doing. So that is my tip for this week. Now let's get into our interview with Dr. Jill Johnson. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jill Johnson in the house.
Great to be here, Andrea.
I'm so glad. And we just got to see each other in person. And before we started, anybody watching the YouTube, I've got the coolest shirt, cool PR, all the things.
So appropriate, right? For all our PR professionals who do all the things.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I mean, coffee's on there. We got email, we got targets, we got the megaphone, which is awesome. We got
trying to hit a moving target. Yeah. Put all the puzzle pieces together, all the things.
Yes, I love it. I am so glad that you're here on the podcast. The first time. This is weird. It's like I'm up into the 120s, but you've had a busy year with Class Intercom. So I, of course, have gotten to know you pretty well. I love all the things that Class Intercom's doing. But why don't, Jill, you just take us into your background, kind of how you came to be working now with Class Intercom.
Yeah, sure. I've been around a long time, so I'll try to, give you the short version. But Yeah, been in education for 30 years. I was a classroom teacher for 17, worked several years doing professional development at an educational service unit. I've been in Nebraska my whole career, and then became a high school administrator and assistant principal. And when I was there, that was really when I was dealing with a lot of things, good and bad, but really kind of was dealing with kids using social media in a bad way, and it was filtering into schools. And so at that time too, I was working on my dissertation and ended up doing my dissertation work on student-led social. And so I became, while I was looking for a solution, I was also the PR person because we didn't have a PR person. So I got that as other duties as assigned. So I was working both sides of social media, the positive and the negative. And so during my dissertation work, I also became a Class Intercom client. And then I was using Class Intercom as a filter for my dissertation work. And so, that's how things sort of happen with those relationships. And then when I finished my doctorate, then they offered me a position here. And it's just been fantastic being able to continue to help impact schools and work with students and get to do that and offer some solutions for those negatives, as well as give schools a better voice for social media.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you just tell us a little bit about what Class Intercom provides? And we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper, but people might be wondering. And I know that we were just in Chicago at the National School Public Relations Association seminar, and so many folks, are looking to get students involved, but it's challenging to do that safely, and you don't want to be handing out passwords and some of those things. And I know that that's kind of how Class Intercom started. So do you just want to kind of share what your platform does?
Yeah, definitely. We are a social media management platform. It allows your school to hook up your social media profiles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. We do have some workarounds for TikTok and YouTube as well. But you can hook your socials to that, and then you can have an unlimited number of content creators. But there's a moderation system. So before it goes out, control freaks like me can say, okay, and you really have to be at a school, you have to maintain that control, and you can have however many moderators you want. We also allow for an unlimited number of scheduled posts, and then we do complete archival as well. So we know what's important for schools. It's our mission to serve all schools, not just our clients. One of the reasons I came onto the company, they obviously invested in me, a lifetime educator, to come in and help run the company. And so, I think we're just really committed to helping schools share those authentic stories, but do so in a really safe and secure manner.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we've got in the show notes, we've got Jill's information as well as just jumping over to classintercom.com to learn more. But diving back into your work as an assistant principal. So how did you use social media then, and how did you start to get students involved in your storytelling process?
Yeah, so when I came on board, rebranding was one of the things that the school was working on, but they hadn't really committed any time to it. And so I took that on as a bit of a pet project. And so it was unifying those brands. It was reining in all those, what we sometimes call rogue accounts. I know just in my high school, there were 37 Twitter accounts. And those were just the ones that I knew about and that they were using our brand. And it was actually staff members and coaches, sponsors doing a really nice job, but with really no guidance or any cadence or any real strategy or anything to it. And so our superintendent, to secure that, really wanted to rein all of those in and have specific social media brands. So I was charged with that. We really unified our brand color, those kind of things, logos, made sure we had the right things, and then brought them in. And then it became, I'm like encouraging teachers, tell your story, send me your stuff, like we all do. And then I was getting those crazy texts and crazy emails that were just a photo a little bit of text, but made no sense for me to put out on social. And then they weren't timely. I think everybody knows that story. They weren't timely because I had to go back and get more info. And by the time I did that, the story was passed. And so that was really, when I went looking for a solution, because I was overwhelmed because I was doing my job as an AP, and then the really communications role, specifically social media on top of that, was really too much. And so I needed to find that solution.
Yeah. So what kind of stories, I mean, just kind of diving into the stories that you were then getting, not only from staff, sounds like, they were using the system, but your students, I think students are those great storytellers, and there's so many great things happening. So tell me a little bit about that.
So once we got Class Intercom, it was really trying to figure out a system. And so I tell the story a lot of my very first student intern. I had no plan. I had no idea of what I was going to do, but I was on lunch duty as a good AP. And one of my students was taking a picture of her foot with her phone and sending it to her friend. And that was kind of in the early days of Snapchat. And so I'm asking her, why would you do that? What's the point here? And so she's explaining Snapchat to me. And so then I get a Snapchat account, but I asked her to be my first intern. And fortunately, she said yes. And not only was she just a natural content creator, she ended up being an incredible leader and a great influencer within our school. So she became my first intern. And then we grew from there and realized it's too hard to have a few people do this. And so we added that fall right away, we added a student representative for every single activity in the school. So if it was football, if it was cheerleading, if it was quiz bowl, whatever it might be, every activity had their own student sponsor. We trained them, got them on Class Intercom, and had them start telling their stories. And so these really rich stories started coming out. Well, then there was kind of this positive peer pressure that took place because some groups were getting a bit jealous, I guess, that, well, how come they're getting all of this attention on social media and we're not? And so our mantra became, if you want your story told, you need to tell it. And so we had a cheerleader mom who said, how come you're never talking about the cheerleaders? And I said, well, they have their own rep. So if we need to add another rep, we can, or maybe even mom, if you want to help, we can get you on there. Because again, we weren't giving up any control. Those cheerleaders started telling this really rich story, not just of performances, but of working out in the weight room early in the morning, these early morning practices, the hard work they do for safety. It really changed their story and the culture of the way they were perceived, even within our building. And so really giving those kids the chance to tell the stories from their perspective really just enhanced that overall story. And I think made it much more authentic because it's their story, right? We're all just there as the adults kind of facilitating their stories. So the perspective of an AP or principal or even teacher is very different than that of a whole array of students that are actually at these activities, practices, events, even in the classroom.
Yeah. So like a lot of clubs have like a secretary and a president and, whatever, treasurer. It's like you also have another role that is like your social media liaison or, whatever you kind of call that. Is that right?
Yep, they just became social media reps, and some of our clubs did name them as officers. So
Okay.
because it's a big role. If you do it right, it can be a big role.
Yeah. So the one thing that comes to mind listening to this, Jill, is that, oh my gosh, if you've got all these clubs, because sometimes I say, Jill, you can break Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So like you can like post so much that it's like, okay, you are spamming people and this is way too much. So how obviously you were able to like approve stuff and schedule it out with, the appropriate time. But was there ever a time where there was actually too much? And did you then put those on certain platforms, or how did you manage that?
It's funny because kids would worry about that, like, well, how much and what's too much? And I appreciate that cadence, but I'm also kind of like, I want it to be organic enough that it is authentic. And so I always said, you just post away and I'll let you know when it's too much. And we really started early on really designating the appropriate platform. So for instance, if we were doing score updates from the football game, that student who was in charge of football was posting score updates at the quarters from just to Twitter. Making sure using our hashtag, all those kind of things, and then doing a final score update on Facebook and Twitter, because we do have a big following on Facebook who likes that. And that, which we came to find out because they were asking us for it. But then the student who was doing Instagram, was in charge of maybe the band or the student section, those stories were being told more on Instagram. And then maybe just one unified one, like with the game wrap up, like we would maybe grab and unify a post, and have student section, band, cheerleaders, and football with the score update post. So I could do that if I wanted to too, because you can edit right within the app as well. So if it seemed like it was too much coming into one place, we could edit and refine if needed.
Okay. And so, I'm all about balance and all of that with being in school PR, because you're doing all the things, as my shirt says. So if it's Friday night and it's a football game and I happen to not be there, is there a way to give that student the ability to post direct without having to go through that approval process so that it does go out in a timely manner? How does that work?
Well, yeah. So the cool thing is you don't have, like when we talk about student takeovers, like Class Intercom student takeover 24/7, but they do have to have that approval. But the cool thing is I can be on my couch and do it. So my big aha moment with Class Intercom that fall was I was at a marching band competition, supervising, taking video pictures, posting that stuff from marching band, and coming in was cross country, quiz bowl, volleyball tournament, softball tournament, all coming in real time with photos, with accurate pieces from people at those events in real time. And so I was able to approve and post, where typically I would get home on that Saturday afternoon and I would be like on Facebook going, oh, my mom friend has a good picture of the volleyball team that got third. I'll text her and see if I can use her photo, that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't even have scores because everything would have been, did you win 2 and lose 1? Did you get in through pool play? Like I wouldn't have had any of that information. And so that was a big aha moment for me, being able to be on my mobile device or on my couch or whatever, but still approving content, making sure it was on brand, accurate. You can do edits for spelling correction or add hashtags, those kind of things too.
Okay, so it makes it super easy where sometimes you're trying to make sense and pull things together. So what kind of training was involved? You said that once you got these student reps, you kind of provided some training for them so what did that look like?
Yeah, so it was usually just, we'd add them to the app, which is as simple as adding their school email. That's all really secure. And then they can use just a single sign-on if you're a Google school or whatever. But then it was like it was a 5-minute training in my office or at lunch or wherever I could grab them. And so it's such an easy platform to use. So it's not like it didn't take a very long time. But I will tell you, one of the first things I did when I came on Class Intercom was we need to set up a training system so that people don't have to do that, because 5 minutes plus 5 minutes plus 5 minutes plus 5 minutes are minutes that you don't have and a lot of times get interrupted. And so we do have what we call our certification program now on Class Intercom. So people can watch a series of short videos and then take a quiz, print off their certificate, and then all of your users are getting the exact same training, and we're building on those as well. But it's like I said, it's simple to use, but you just don't have a lot of minutes, in a school that match up. So it's important that everyone gets the same training too. You don't forget anything.
Yeah. So what about the elements of storytelling and some of the do's and don'ts? I think about, oh my gosh, when you talk about all the things, we talk about all the hand signals, right? Like, and I am not cool, Jill. We've established we're in our 40s now. Like I'm not cool anymore. So I ask my kids, and sometimes my girls are even embarrassed, or sometimes I don't even think they know what they mean, but yet everybody's using them. So, and sometimes t-shirts and like things aren't appropriate. And so what kind of training around that aspect of storytelling was important for you when you were in that role with those
It's
student
funny
reps?
because if knowing all that stuff makes you cool, I feel like I'm still super cool because when you're
You
an
are.
AP, like sadly, you tend to wear this like everything's you're a little bit on edge. Like you kind of question everything and you're Googling it or looking it up or asking those people you trust, So but yeah, hand signals kind of became a complete no-no in our yearbook and all of those things. And so we talked about some of those best practices. We're building some of those into our training here too, but we talked about those. And then when things would come up, just another cool element of Class Intercom is you can give feedback right within the app. So even if they forget a hashtag, I could go ahead and add the hashtag, but then send them a notification. Hey, don't forget the hashtag. So I'm not doing it every time. So in the same way, I could say, this is great content, but the kid in the back is throwing a hand signal that I just can't post. I can blur things out, but there are things you want to learn and things that maybe just don't look so good. Because if you blur something out, people know that there's probably something bad back there. So anyway, just going through those things, it's a great digital citizenship lesson. Kids actually got almost more they were so aware of it that they were holding back a little bit too much. And I'd be like, it's okay if you've got, like the peace sign or whatever, it's okay. So go ahead and submit some of those things. We just try to really be aware. Having the ability to approve, though, the people who are approving content do know those things and they do know what can and can't go. And so that's what really kind of keeps that safety net in place. So that those kind of things don't happen. Can mistakes still happen and things still slip through? Can misspellings happen even with a moderator? Of course, we're human and we deal with those kind of things, but the collaborative part of it and that as well as that hierarchy piece, being able to approve content, really eliminates a ton of that and the vast majority of it.
Yeah, and I think there's so many single like solo PR positions, like you're the only communications person for a district really big. And really big to me is anything like over 500 students, but of
I'm
course,
with
into
you.
10,000, 12,000, one school district had like 18,000 students, one school PR person. Some of you who are listening are like, I'm not even a school PR person. Like I am the library media specialist and this was thrown on my plate. So time is often a concern. I'm imagining this really, really helps those folks that are struggling for not only the time to do it, but the content. That this gives them a tool that is going to enable them to tell great stories, see a lot of growth in their social channels because there's so many stories being told. So do you have any stories that maybe come to mind with some of your customers as far as what they've felt or some of the the effects that it's had in their districts, in their schools, because they've been more active and told better stories?
Yeah, I think there's a few that come to mind just when you're thinking about people who come to us and say, well, we're on Instagram, but we don't really have a following elsewhere. So allowing them to easily push to multiple platforms if they want to, just to try to get that following going before then they try to branch out. I think you have to start simple. A ton of stories just about how the storytelling that they were pushing out to social, that they were really doing for alumni contact, stakeholder interaction, really trying to bring the outside in, how much that impacted the culture within their school. Because, perception is reality. And I kind of hate that saying sometimes, but like when you're putting that out there, it makes your stakeholders really proud. And then other people in other communities start to see that too. And then they start to really ask those questions about, wow, how come they're doing that and not us? Or wow, this might be a better choice for our kids, those kind of things. And so we see a ton of that. We also have cool stories like a school down the road from here that showed a picture of really proud picture of their students welding. Their welding program, awesome picture with sparks flying. And then the local business coming and saying, yeah, we hire welders, a lot of them, just a year or 18 months out of high school once they've done their training. We want your students using proper equipment, not that outdated stuff that you have. So we'd like to give you $50,000 so that you can redo your welding bay. Right. So like, I just think there's just these kind of incredible stories. Also a lot of stories where, the local newspaper, maybe local TV station, depending on your size, like being in really good communication with them because they're going to social to grab stories. I mean, we see that all the time now. So when they'll come and grab your positive stories and you have a positive relationship with them, then they can help, maybe pick that up or tell that story. I think those that have PR people, you're trying to find those really rich stories, but it's kind of like a needle in the haystack. But when you have a lot of people creating content, now all of a sudden, instead of just that looking for that one elusive story, you've got multiple stories and you can kind of be like, well, that's really interesting. A Who Knew Wednesday about a kid who plays 19 musical instruments. Maybe I want to pursue that a little bit and maybe go interview that kid and see really what's going on there. Cause that's pretty impressive. And then following up with a bigger feature story, that you maybe want to feature on your district level or, on your website or something like that too.
Yeah.
So there's so many stories. Yeah.
Right. And I can imagine, you talked about having these student reps from each organization. A lot of schools have a journalism class or a student-run newspaper or a photography class. I would assume those are really good connections to make as well with getting those students involved, because you could like incorporate that into like part of the curriculum, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, more and more are adding actual social media classes, but digital media, digital marketing, journalism, yearbook, multimedia. There's so many classes are already out there that have these features. And now you're giving students, I mean, as an educator, it's like I do, we do, you do, but it's hard to do the you do for kids on social without really taking some risks. And so again, something like Class Intercom allows you to do that in a safe and authentic way. And if it's not good, you don't have to push it out there. So yeah, I always recommend tapping into those already, you've already identified kids who are interested, but don't underestimate the power of those volunteers, because when kids really have a passion for it, they find a way and they tend to be really, really engaged in that too.
Well, and it's practical experience. Like there's jobs. I mean, they could start a side business as a student doing social media for, local businesses and things. And it might just spur our next, generation of school communicators or digital marketers or, all of those things. And so I love the whole idea of getting them involved,
Yeah.
because it's real skills.
Yeah, I just have to tell this real quick. We have a client in Wisconsin, Clay Reisler, and he's an amazing digital marketing teacher. He's used Class Intercom for several years, but his students produced like 1,500 pieces of content last year. I mean, and for all platforms, amazing content. He does such a fantastic job. He started putting dollar amounts on, if the school hired an actual PR person, how much money that would be worth. And the money like that he makes isn't near what he deserves either. I'll just put that out there for all those fantastic teachers out there. But those kids actually some of his students got hired by local businesses because they're telling the story that the kids are the storytellers too. So local businesses were coming going, could you do that for us? So like 3 of his students this year ended up with paying gigs as high school students. which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
That is incredible. So obviously we've had a theme, and I have a feeling like your best social media tip might have the theme too. But if you were to just give one tip for our listeners when it comes to social media, what would you say it would be?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've probably, said it too many times today, but I really do think I think students are our biggest untapped resource. All of us feel overwhelmed. All of us feel busy. All of us keep getting more things on our plate, including things like do social media, tell your story. So why not put it in the hands of students who they want to be content creators? They know social media in a way. Social media is not going away. So it's a win-win in that you have these content creators that you can moderate. And like you just said, you're giving kids this very authentic experience that's really going to set them on a nice course into whatever career field they may take. And I have a hard time. I speak to students quite often, and I always ask them, what career field is there that doesn't use social media? And they'll say, well, like a surgeon. There's no way a surgeon would have social media. And I'm like, hold on, let's Google. And we'll find the social media of a doctor who's, really out there promoting what they're doing. And then someone else goes, Dr. Pimple Popper, like it's just crazy when you think about really every industry. They might not be sharing all their trade secrets or showing things with their actual personal clients, but they're telling their story to draw people in, to entertain them, to educate them, to inform them, whatever it might be.
Yeah, it touches everything.
Mhm.
Well, thanks so much. Our time has flown by. And so, Jill, what's the best way to stay connected to you?
Yeah, well, people could definitely reach out. My email's jill@classintercom.com, but I'm on all the social platforms, Dr. Jill J or Dr. Jill Johnson. So happy to connect with anybody, whether that be, if you're interested in Class Intercom, great. But if you just have questions about social media, specifically student-led social media, and the leadership that allows that, really happy to help there.
Yeah, and they can do you like have like a walkthrough on your website, or do they, if they wanted to get a, walkthrough, would they book that with you, or how does that work?
Yeah, they can book that right on our website, just a short demo. And if you want just a little bit, just to see if it's something for you, or you have questions about the price or whatever, I'm happy to talk about that, or dive into a little bit longer demo. Yep.
Yeah, it's very affordable, you guys. So check it out. Definitely a great resource to help you balance all the things. So thanks so much for hanging out with us, Jill. I'm sure we will see each other again soon at another conference. We both have a pet. We're both Midwesterners. I
Yep.
don't have chickens. Jill has chickens, but anyways,
I've
we
got
will.
chickens, you've got cheese curds. So
Yes, very true. I've got a lot of them sitting up in my refrigerator right now, which is probably not so great for my waistline, but that's all right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. We will see you next week with another great guest. Let's just continue to tell those stories and make this the best school year yet. So thanks so much, Jill. Bye bye.
thanks, everybody.